I am Jim Collison, and this is the Clifton Strengths Podcast, Season 2, recorded on April 4th, 2023. In this Clifton Strengths podcast series, we look at the Clifton Strengths for Leaders report, one theme at a time, and today's theme is Relator. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in the chat room, or if you have questions after the fact, maybe on the podcast or there on YouTube, you can always send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a senior learning and development consultant and joined me for Season 1 of the Clifton Strengths podcast, where we looked at well-being at work, the book Well-Being at Work, one theme at a time. Always great to be with you, Jaclynn. Welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be here.
We are spending some time talking about Relator today, and it's 9 for me, 5 for you. We're excited to be there real high. Give us a quick intro to it. What do we mean when we say Relator?
So if you have Relator high, you enjoy close relationships with others. You find deep satisfaction in working hard with friends to achieve a goal.
I feel fortunate that I have
Sure
both
do.
Woo and Relator high. People say, how does
Mm-hmm.
that work? And that old song, Deep and Wide with relationships, is what comes
Oh,
up.
that's
Right?
good.
That's it. Kind of works for
Yeah,
me, and
get
I,
the
I
best of
enjoy
both
both,
worlds.
right? Work in a room,
Mm-hmm.
but also meeting people and getting to know them very, very well. Of course, all in the context of influence. We're spending some time thinking about this in the context of leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the power of this theme in a leadership role?
Well, I think if you're a leader with this theme, individuals notice the time, attention, and investment that you're putting into them, which can help build camaraderie and compassion. I would also say rapport and trust. And that makes it more likely for others to come to you with different perspectives and ideas to move the company forward. Because there is that level of comfort, or maybe, oh, this person gets me or wants to get me or wants to understand me.
You use the word individuals in there in the small I context. We
Mm-hmm.
sometimes see Relator come with individualization. Those are often two that
That's a
end
good
up
call
they're
out.
buddies together. For you, you don't have that. Individualization's a little farther down the line in your leadership
Yeah.
roles. As you think of Relator without individualization, what does that look like for you?
Ooh, that's good. Um, I still find that uniqueness, and I think it's just because I am so curious about what's going on in other people's lives, and that's so top of mind for me. And maybe with other folks that have Relator high too, before I share about myself, a lot of times I'm like, "What's going on in your world? Like, tell me more. I want to know more about you." Recalling events that they, maybe just came back from, asking them about their family or friends, even in the workplace, those that I'm uh, closest to or talk to a lot. I know a lot about their family life.
Yeah.
So it might show up to others as individualization, even though it's Relator.
Yeah. No, I
I mean,
like that.
that's one of those where I'm just kind of sitting on it and thinking of it with you, but that's probably a good reason why we can't always guess what someone's talent themes are, because it might look like individualization to some
Yeah.
people, but
Yeah.
it's definitely the Relator.
That's a coaching question, right? I'm asking you, like, hey,
Yeah.
how does this show up for you? And what does this kind of look like? And, I see that play out in our conversations pre-show where you're asking,
Mhm.
like, you know my kids' names.
Mhm.
Some history about you. You bring back things as we're talking about this in a way, only because you've remembered we've spent all this time talking about it. And I
Yes.
think as we think about how this theme, so there's a great example for you, but as we think about how this theme could lead others, generally speaking, how could High Relator use this to lead others?
They see the value and importance of establishing connections in the workplace, knowing that that's going to support engagement, well-being, and productivity as well. So just even role modeling the behaviors alone can spread that sphere of influence they have, where other leaders start looking for opportunities to connect more intentionally, whether it's colleagues, leader to leader, manager to manager, or the employees that they lead. Because they're probably like, there's something going on here. There's something in that water in
Yeah.
that department, or people are just drawn to that leader because, they'll engage whoever it is they might be talking with.
Mm.
I gotta do more of that. What questions are you
Mhm.
asking over there? How are you recognizing people?
Yeah.
So I think just role modeling alone is how, even though it's a relationship building theme, it can look like an influencing theme. They can influence through that regard,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Yeah, I know, right on.
Yeah.
I like to think too about the context of teams for individuals that do have high relator and using that, maybe you have a team with a leader that doesn't have it, not
Mhm.
required, right? Not required. Anybody can lead with any set of the themes. But of using that superpower to build team cohesiveness with the concept of deeper relationships. What kinds of things can we do? And even what kind of
Yes.
tricks can we deploy in the team to help those who don't have it understand or know or reminders of things, right? I always appreciate those from a
Yes.
team perspective, right? Some ways for the leader to embrace that even if they don't have it, right? Let's talk about that
Yeah.
for a second. How can this theme hinder the leadership of others?
Um, well, given this leader's comfort level in one-on-one conversations or more smaller team settings, this leader is someone that's likely going to need to be more intentional about building those connections beyond the people or teams that they spend the time, I would say, spend their time with the most, just to ensure that there's still active communication and cross collaboration. Otherwise, what can end up happening is workplace silos might take place,
Mm.
even though that's not what they're trying to do, just because that comfort level is with their team or with that
Mhm.
division or that department.
Mhm. Yeah, this isn't one I have thought about, and I need to. This may be one to think through. Is as a leader, how
Hmm.
does my relator play out across a team? I have high individualization, so that works out well. But maybe if I have higher consistency, and how does that work fairly across the teams? How am I spreading my time across teams? How am I spend?
Yeah,
Who am I investing in? Those just might be some questions as a leader when we think of hindering. Those may be some questions you might want to ask yourself, or coaches you might want to ask them, like,
for
how
sure.
are you investing your time in people? What does that look like? And how is that working, across the team? As we
Yes.
think about this in the context of the four needs of followers: hope, stability, compassion, and trust, where do you think relator it can fit across all four, but
Hmm.
what comes to mind when you're thinking about
Trust for sure. Bold and underline, I would say. I think that's one of the reasons relators are drawn to one-on-ones and or smaller team settings, because you can start to build safety in the room, psychological safety, emotional safety in that smaller setting, and deepen the trust and rapport, um, maybe more quickly than you could if you're in a larger environment. But it's a slow build, a slow burning relationship that they're
that? Hmm.
still, achieving. So I would say trust, because that's just it. It seems to be in the sphere of someone high in relator, and then compassion, of wanting to truly get to know somebody. What are your goals here in the organization? What are some barriers?
Hmm.
How can I support you? Um, what are your hobbies and interests so I can connect with you on that? Just looking for opportunities to have that common ground and show that you genuinely care about somebody and want something that's authentic. So I could see trust and compassion
Hmm.
just right off the bat.
It kind of
What about
reminds me of
you,
the
having this yourself?
Yeah, kind of reminds me of the Q10 question, like having a best friend at work. And listen,
Mhm.
all themes can create friendships, and all themes can build relationships. So it's not like Relator has the corner of the market on it. It just does this well for
Yeah.
success factors, right?
Yes.
In creating success. And I often, kind of, I just think of that best friends at work and being able to create those of having that ability to help create those relationships that may lead to those deep, impactful relationships, right? That
Mhm.
that build that, like you said, I think in some ways build stability. We ask that
Good
question. I think a
one.
lot of times that question is the best friend isn't about, do I have them? It's that when I do have them, it gives me some stability, right, at work. And so
It's a good
some
one.
interesting thoughts in there. I'd love to see. We've been asking this question as we're recording this. We're coming up. We're just this is it for we have two more and we're done. But I love to for all of these is in your coaching sessions is think about how, especially with leaders, is say with each of these themes, how does this play in for those 4 needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And spend some time thinking about that. I think it's a good model to kind of bring in. Okay, we are spending some time this season thinking about this idea of report dynamics. What if we jam
Yeah.
2 of our role-based reports together? We're looking at Clifton Strengths for leaders. Let's bring in Clifton Strengths for sales. What could that look like? Bringing those 2 reports together, what does that do for us?
If we mash them up,
Yeah.
this could be a sales leader who really gets to know their clients. And so they've got this portfolio of likely full on long term clients, just given their interest in getting to know them and the extra effort that they're putting forth to really support them. And the benefit to that is not only do they continue to build and grow that account, but if one of those stakeholders from that other organization leaves and goes elsewhere, they remember that person. They want to work with that person again. And so the new logos or new clients that the sales leader is pulling in is likely someone that they've already known that just went to a different organization. So they start to extend their network that way, so to speak,
Mm,
through the
mhm,
relationships that they've built and grown.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think let me admit something here. It's an area, even though I have high relator, I really need to still work on and practice and find some ways. People ask me all the time, "Hey, do you know a coach?" And then they fill in these descriptors. And yeah, there's 14,000. I can't remember them all, but I could do a better job of remembering more than I do. And that it's just it's a skill I still need to work on, right? These things, while it's number 9, it's not just doesn't work. I need to practice it. And
Yeah.
so I probably need to do some more thinking along those lines of
There's your
relator,
homework.
especially in yeah, do some things to help build that strength. Help do some things to make it better, right? Make it more
Hmm.
successful. What about if we jam the Clifton Strengths for Leaders together? I always think of this like Reese's peanut butter cup. Together, which is my favorite, by the way, with the
They're so good.
manager. What are those 2? How do they come together?
Well, because this is a people leader that enjoys connections and genuine connections with their team members and getting to know them, this is probably going to be that people manager that's supporting and encouraging connections between team members too. So if someone's new to the role, I can see this leader encouraging that team member to schedule some time to connect with um, 10 other people in the organization or 5 other people on the team, just to start to build those partnerships. I can see this person wanting to focus on team retreats, um, team discussions, partnerships, celebrating team wins together. So, as a result of the effort they put into relationships, their team members feel like this is someone that is creating that culture of trust and communication and collaboration.
Mhm. Yeah, and Jaclyn, I'm going to ask you to kind of wrap this here in a second, but as we think
Hmm.
about advice, we put a lot of pressure on leaders in this area. A lot of the things that you just talked about in manager leader are kind of some basic expectations for a team. We give a lot of
Yes.
advice around teams, and so for those leaders who may not have it as high, and we think about it, and you think about in your role, what kind of advice would we give to them, knowing these are some
Hmm.
basic things that need to happen on a team? We don't do this a lot in talking about it, but it's such pressure, I think, for leaders, managers. What kind of advice would
Yes.
you give to a leader manager, maybe where it's lower, they're not having that doesn't come naturally, but we know we need some of these kinds of things on a team? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yes, that's a good one. I think it's going back to even Q10. Our I have a best friend at work
Mhm,
engagement item as part of our engagement survey, and highlighting what that is. It's, do I have a trusted confidant at work? Do I have someone that I've got trust and rapport with? When I have a good day, do I have that person I can celebrate wins with? When I have a bad day, is there someone I can just unpack with, get it out in the open, and then I feel comfortable going back to my role? Is it a thought partner that I love to just ideate with or problem solve with, or is very resourceful in nature? So, for someone that might have relator low or might not understand why close connections in the workplace are applicable, when you break it down with those types of examples, that resonates even to them, where they go, oh, that makes sense. I can see how that can create camaraderie in a really productive way as
mhm,
well,
mhm,
or in a really conducive way because they're supporting each other's well-being. They're supporting each other's burnout. They're problem solving together. It's taking less off my shoulders because they have more people they can go to for support. So that's what I would share is now go back to your team and ask, when do we feel most connected as a team? What are we doing? How can we do more of that?
Oh, it's good. Some good thoughts. I always think, even for me, I've got some things to work on with this. Like that, we're not always just there. Oftentimes we've got some things to figure out. This is an area of real need for me as I think about. Yeah, it's there, but I still have some real work to do on that, and want to be challenged on it. Want to kind of think through it a little bit. Final thoughts as we kind of wrap up Relator. Anything else you'd wrap this with?
Well, if somebody doesn't have it, and someone with a Relator on the team and you're looking to build connections, you might be able to pick their brain. In other words, ask them for some ideas or best practices on how they're creating those connections. There might be something that you could take for your own team. But if you have Relator High, what I have been encouraging a lot, because it's something that's coming up in engagement data, making sure that those that are new to a company, especially if they're remote workers, are having opportunities in that onboarding process to start extending their arm's reach, so to speak, and connecting with other team members. So that's where the manager, if you've got Relator High, you could make a list of folks that they could reach out to. What do you appreciate about the company? What's your role? What can set me up for success? And just have them start to build those friendships. It's taken longer if they're working remote because they're not able to just see those folks on site. And that's a really good way to engage them early on. Or maybe if they've just in the last 3 years as a part of the pandemic, they've been hired in and they're remote workers. Now's a good time to just make sure they've got those partnerships.
Yeah. Good time for a review.
Yeah.
How are we doing in this area, in a good time? Well, with that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we do have available now in Gallup Access. Head out to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths and sign in with your account there, and then go to the resources tab, upper left corner, choose resources, boom, put in this theme. All the resources we have available are there and available for you. Check those out. Stay up to date with all the webcasts by following us at gallup.eventbrite.com. Create an account there and just follow Gallup, and you'll get a notification via email whenever we do something new. Join us on any social platform by searching Clifton Strengths, and we want to thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed it, share it, like it, subscribe, do all those things that you need to do so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening. For those who are listening live, stay around for a little bit of mid-show, and with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.